Russell Wilson. Man, I love this. I mean, Greg Rosenthal of the Around the NFL podcast, I think coined it the best. And we're talking about where quarterbacks will end up. He called it, he's like, how excited are you for the Sean Payton, Russell Wilson passive aggressive source off this offseason? Basically, the Russ and Sean Payton clearly don't like each other. There's parting ways at some point. And Russ went on Brandon Marshall's podcast, I Am Athlete, and said he wants to stay in Denver, even though he put his house on the market. And that he would take a veteran, or maybe Jeremy Fowler reported this, that he would take a veteran minimum salary in order to be a starter somewhere. And I have to say, Breach, yes, of course you're willing to take a veteran minimum salary when you're making $40 million in cash from the Broncos, and every dollar that you take from a new team offsets it against your Broncos salary, which you want to take in full because you want to make them pay for embarrassing you.
Yeah, I think this is hilarious because I almost feel like it makes me think that we're underestimating Russell Wilson in the sense that he's so robotic, but he is playing this chess game perfectly in the sense that he keeps saying the right things about the Broncos, even though I think we both know he absolutely does not want to be in Denver. As you said, he put his house up for sale. There's no way he wants to continue playing for Sean Payton. This team asked him to take a pay cut less than halfway through the season. So there's no way he wants to stay in Denver, but then he comes out and says, yeah, I want to stay and I want to win 2 Super Bowls in the next 5 years. And that's just that. So it's going to make the Broncos look like the bad guys when they get rid of Russell Wilson, whether that's cutting him or trading him, which almost seems like it's 100% certainty, something that's going to happen. And as you said, of course you take the minimum contract because that's your final way to stick it to the Broncos. You make them pay every single cent that you can make them pay you. And the most you can make them pay is by taking a league minimum deal. So I think Russell absolutely takes a league minimum deal. I think he is just counting the days till he gets cut. I think he'd prefer to be cut right now so he could be at the combine or send his camp to the combine to be talking with teams. But yeah, there's no way he's staying in Denver.
No, it's over. And now he has to say that he wants to stay. You do that just to like that way, you have plausible deniability when people say, "Oh, Russ was part of the problem." Like he's blaming Sean Payton, and Sean Payton's blaming Russ, and they're doing it in like spiteful, sort of like passive aggressive ways. Like they're leaking it out, and they've stopped sourcing it. They stopped leaking it out through sources, and now they're just getting out there and saying it. Like Sean Payton was blatantly ripping Russ at the combine, his entire press conference, talking about how like you need like dynamic playmaker and like all this different stuff. He's like, I saw a meme. He literally cited a meme. Sean Payton cited a meme at the combine suggesting, and then was like, yeah, our next quarterback's got to work out better than the last one. If the Broncos cut him, and they can do, it's just worth noting, they can do a couple of things here. If they cut him before, they designated a post-June 1 release, they will have $35 million, $35.4 million in salary cap, dead cap space on the salary cap this season. Now, the good news for the Broncos is the salary cap, as we noted, just jumped $30 million. So, Breach, I sort of wonder, what do you think they do? Do they do a $35.4 million this year and $49.6 in 2025 and spread it out over 2 seasons? Or with the $30 million spike, knowing that you don't have a top 3 pick and you're not going to get one of the best quarterbacks, so you could end up with J.J. McCarthy potentially, do you just bite the bullet and take an $85 million record-breaking cap hit in 2024?
I don't think you bite the bullet. I think your 2 options are you do the post-June, split that up, because a $35.4 million cap hit, dead money hit, is not horrible. We've seen teams take bigger ones. And then what about door number 3, where you do a trade? And look, teams know you don't want to be with Russell Wilson. They're not going to offer you anything. But if you call up a team that needs a quarterback and say, hey, we'll give you Russell Wilson for a 4th or 5th round pick, I mean, I would think a team might be interested, although they would probably say, yeah, we don't want to pay Russ this much money, X, X, and X. We'll need to restructure the contract so that you guys are paying all the bonus money and that we're paying him the bare minimum. I think you have to make it a post. $85 million dead cap hit is just insanity, even if it's a $255 million salary.
So there's 3 different levels of trade situations for Russell Wilson, according to SpotTrack.com. Between today and March 17th, which is the start of the new league year, if they trade him.
No, the new league year starts March 13th. He's got
March 13th is 4 days after. You're right. Yeah. 4 days after the new league year. My apologies. This is weekend of Arnold, the API. Or no, that's the weekend of the players. Exciting. Lots of sports stuff going on then. If they trade in between now and March 17th, they carry a $68 million dead cap hit in 2024, which is not great. But if you could trade him for a 5th round pick and carry just a $68 million dead cap hit, I think you do that in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah.
Versus the $85 million if you release him.
There's just not. Yeah.
Now, if you trade in between March 17th and June 1st, it's a $90 million dead cap hit. So in other words, if they don't trade him by March 17th, they're probably going to have to release him.
Yeah, and whatever decision is going to be made on him is going to be made before that guarantee kicks in on March 17th.
Exactly.
And that's really the key part.
If they can find a team to trade for him, that's the only reason they're gonna hold him till March 17th. By the way, I would guarantee you, like spitefully, because they know they're eating this huge cap hit. So I would guess they hold him to March 17th if they can't trade him, and then they cut him, designate him a post June 1 release, hold the $85 million in dead cap space until June 1st. But see, that's the thing is like by June 1st, you kind of have your roster done. Like you have to eat the money until June 1st.
Okay, so here it is. I was looking. Joel Corey, our guy, our former NFL agent, wrote a good story on Russell Wilson's contract. On March 17th, his 2025 base salary of $37 million becomes fully guaranteed. So obviously, you cannot have him on the roster at that point. Otherwise, you're eating $37 million. Then it's also the final day of a 5-day period for the Broncos to pick up an option on Wilson's 2028 contract, which is worth $50 million. And obviously they are not
think they're going to do that.
Pick that up. And then to get the Broncos to pick it up, Wilson's 2024 base salary reduces from a fully guaranteed $39 million to $17 million, but he's going to get that money in 2028. So you wouldn't do it. So basically, he is not going to be on the team on March 17th. It's just a matter of how he leaves the team.
Exactly. He will be gone on March 17th. Is he traded or is he cut? And how much will the Broncos eat? I'm just saying, like, you can't, because if you designate somebody a post June 1 release, you get that cap space on June 1st.
Right.
Like you don't get the cap space immediately. So if you have to build your roster anyway with the $85 million, like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is like, is it worth it just to like, you get $50 million in debt and cap space and like $50 million extra in cap space?
And the Broncos are in the red right now. They are over the cap and they only have, 13 days to get under it.
Right.
And so they have to get this figured out. And
fortunately, Sean Payton comes from the Saints where the salary cap doesn't exist.
They invented that strategy. Who do you think Russ ends up with?
I'll say the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think the Steelers make the most. I just feel like the Steelers are the Seahawks and Russell's early years. We have this great defense. You have a run game around them. You have a couple good receivers. I think the Steelers
don't screw it up and make us go to Kenny Pickett. Like that's basically what you're at. Fox Sports, Ralph Vacchiano reporting several trade suitors for Sam Howell, buying or selling that the Commanders would trade Sam Howell, or that people want to trade for Sam Howell.
I don't know how desperate you'd have to be to trade for Sam Howell with everything that's available between the draft, between free agency. Unless you need a backup quarterback, I'm just not sure why you would go after Sam Howell. Right? I mean, I can't think of a team that's going to give up much to land him.
I mean, he was like, when Sam Howell was at Carolina his sophomore year, and he was a legitimate, going into his junior year, he was a legitimate top 5 Heisman contender. Carolina's win total was like 9.5. Howell had a great season. He was considered like a chance to go be number 1 overall, and he went to the 5th round. And that stinks for Sam Howell. That's dumb rules that he couldn't leave and go get like millions and millions of dollars. He's still getting paid. He's still it's not the worst life in the world. But the fact that he fell to the 5th round tells you, in a bad quarterback draft, by the way, tells you that teams probably didn't have a great grade on him coming into the draft, which means that you're basically just trading for him for a backup. And if I'm Washington, I'm keeping Sam Howell on the roster. He's a 5th round pick. He's in his 2nd year. He's got NFL starts with like decent NFL tape at various points. Like, what if Cliff Kingsbury can fix this guy, or like turn this guy into something good? I mean, if you're drafting a quarterback at 2, Sam Howell is not the guy behind him that's like, especially if it's like Drake May, 2 Carolina guys. That's not going to like force your hand. Fans are going to be clamoring for Sam Howell. I don't see why you would even trade him.
Right, but what if you draft a quarterback at number 2 and you get to training camp and Sam Howell is noticeably better than the draft pick, and
then you have an Andy Dalton, Bryce Young situation?
Well, right. If you start the veteran, everybody's going to be clamoring for the number 2 overall pick. Like, why aren't you playing him? Why aren't you playing him? And you got to come out and be like, well, Sam Howell's better in training camp. But if you play the number 2 overall pick, then it's like, well, you're not putting your best team out there, even though you're trying to get your rookie to grow. So, I mean, I think there are a few good spots out there for Sam Howell. I mean, we heard Woody Johnson basically throw Zach Wilson under the bus when he said we need to do a better job at finding a backup quarterback. So I think Sam Howell could fit in with the New York Jets.
That's a good one.
I think that, to me, would probably be the best fit right now, but I don't know how much the Jets would offer in a trade.
Right. I mean, they're already dealing with like giving up assets for Aaron Rodgers in the first place. I mean, I guess you could make the case too, like if you're the Buffalo Bills, who they have, Matt Barkley. Yeah. I mean, like Sam Howell's not threatening Josh Allen. And he's a mobile quarterback who, if something happened, you obviously hope it doesn't, but if something happened, you feel like you'd have something in your back pocket.
Maybe the Browns. I feel like you have to have an established quarterback who's not worried about losing his job.
Yeah.
And Sam Howell can go in there, and that way your season's not dead if your starter goes down.
Yeah, I like that. All right. Not a crazy idea. Victor Furr of The Athletic is reporting the Raiders are going to make a run at Kirk Cousins. Does Kirk Cousins make sense in the silver and black?
Man, that
hard to imagine him in like it's like evil Kirk Cousins or something.
Yeah, could you imagine Kirk Cousins living in Las Vegas? Look, I know the guy's got a grill, but I think that's as far as Kirk Cousins is like the opposite of a guy I think of who would live in Las Vegas or enjoy his time in Las Vegas. When you think of all the quarterbacks or all the teams that might need a quarterback this offseason, I have the Raiders pretty far down the list of teams that Kirk Cousins would want to play for. Now, if they come out and say, hey, Kirk, we'll give you a fully guaranteed contract over the next 2 years worth $55 million a year, then Kirk Cousins is going to sign with the Raiders. But I just think there are too many teams that make more sense for him. I think the Broncos make a lot of sense because he would be very good at running Sean Payton's offense.
Yes, he would.
We've connected him with the Falcons. We already mentioned that earlier where, Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator, both kind of hinting at a Matthew Stafford type quarterback, and Kirk Cousins is much more like that than Justin Fields. And even the Steelers, who I would put behind both the Broncos and Falcons, but I just would put the Raiders way back there. I just don't think, and they have a great receiver in Devontae Adams, so Cousins would love that, but I just don't feel like it's a great fit.
Like in that same vein too, I think you can make the case that because the Steelers, because the Falcons, and because the Raiders are interested, because the Broncos might be interested, Minnesota is probably going to cave and give Kirk Cousins what he wants, which is a fully guaranteed deal to come back and play in Minnesota. He's been on the tennis court showing off, coming back from the Achilles. He wants to be in Minnesota, they want him to be in Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell said it. The GM said it. And Cousins, I think, has made it clear. So I think ultimately he goes back to Minnesota just because you have Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison, you have TJ Hawkinson. That team was a playoff caliber team even when Cousins went down, and he was playing his best football of his career, maybe. So I'm on the Kirk Cousins stays in Minnesota bandwagon, but mostly because of your point, Breach, that there's interest from other teams, which will likely spur Cousins getting his fully guaranteed deal.
But the big issue, and it's hard to kind of figure it out with Cousins, is that if he wants a fully guaranteed contract, there's no workaround. You have to have that money available in your salary cap. You can't push the money forward. I mean, you can add a voidable year or two to kind of push it forward, but you're still going to be taking a huge chunk. The Vikings, according to Over the Cap, only have $35 million in salary cap space. And if Cousins wants a $45 million per year, fully guaranteed contract. You got to figure out how to fit that in. Maybe you make it a $5 million salary and a $40 million signing bonus for year one to cut down on the salary cap. But whatever it is, you got to be a team with a lot of money to work with to get him.
Yep. And he's pretty stubborn about his fully guaranteed deals. He doesn't really get credit. Like he did it. Like no one else did it.
He's the OG.
I know, but like he did it and it was like, all right, everybody, fully guaranteed deals. Everybody's like, nah, we're good.
And then when Watson did it, he was getting all the credit. It was like, no, Kirk Cousins was the original.
Right.
He got the fully guaranteed deal first.
Yeah. Watson just hopped on, whatever it would be. He just tagged along Cousins, rode shotgun with Cousins.